Alright, so now we're on Unit 5.3a, and we'll be on pages 109 through 111 today. Today what we're going to talk about is actually animals. We've just finished up our unit on plants and how plants perform the 8 life functions that we know as sterngrr. But now we're going to move on and talk about animals, and this should be a lot more familiar to you because we're animals. So one thing that you want to think about while we're going through this unit is what structures do plants and animals have that are similar in function? How do we have things that are the same? First thing when we are talking about animals is that we want to mention or remind ourselves that animals are multicellular. But they also have many organs which work to make organ systems. So one extra side note that I want you to write along with these notes is that you start with a cell, and the cell is the smallest. And from cells, you're going to form tissues. And from tissues, you're going to form organs. And from organs, you're going to form systems, or organ systems. So organ systems would then be our largest level of organization within an animal. So you have your cells, such as one brain cell. Your one brain cell is going to accumulate to form brain tissue, a clump of cells. The tissues will then form the organ, the whole brain itself, and then it'll form the organ system, your nervous system. Okay? So these systems are interdependent on each other in order to maintain homeostasis for the animal. So let's stop a second and think about your brain and your digestive system. How do they work together? How do they depend upon each other? Well, when you're hungry, your brain will send a signal, or when you need energy, your brain will send a signal to your stomach and cause your stomach to kind of gurgle and rumble, right? And the other way around. If you have eaten a lot of food already, your body's taken in that food, digested it, broken it down, and absorbed those nutrients, well, now that you're getting the signals, that's going to signal the brain to stop sending the signal to eat more. Now, of course, people's habits does change that and how quickly and how well that process works, but that's the basic idea. So these organs are adaptations that have evolved to ensure survival and reproductive success. So some animals, the way they digest is very, very complex, whereas some animals, the way they digest and break down food is really simple. So nutrition, respiration, transport, and excretion, these 4 functions of sterngrr are body systems that are very interconnected within an animal. So now we're going to look at these 4 first. We're going to be a little out of order for sterngrr. But for the first part, it says for nutrition, adaptations help animals consume food. Okay? Animals can have mouth parts that help them obtain food, and some animals have teeth, not all, while others will swallow their food whole. So, like with humans, we have to eat and chew and break down our food first before our stomachs can chemically digest it. We do mechanical in our mouths and then chemical in our stomachs. While others will swallow the food whole, like an anaconda, and perform digestion mostly in the stomach, and it's a very slow process. Digested food must then be prepared for transport through the body, so it is absorbed into the bloodstream in an organ called the intestine. So here you see a combination of nutrition, I want to highlight this, and also transport. One thing that you need to know is this is a picture of your small intestine. Your small intestine will small intestine will absorb food. The large intestine will absorb water, H2O. Okay? The intestine will actually have lots, if you see your villi, and you do need to know this, so make sure you're writing this down. Small intestine absorbs food, large intestine absorbs water. And inside of both intestines, you're going to have villi that creates lots of surface area. And I'm going to write this over here, to increase absorption. Okay? So we have villi in our intestines, small and large intestine. That's going to create lots of surface area, which will let us absorb more food and more water and more quickly. So this surface area should seem very familiar to you. What organelle is similar to the villi in structure? Chloroplast and mitochondria. So digested food may be used for energy sources, so animals need to obtain oxygen for respiration. Remember, the main important thing about respiration is to make ATP. So we digest our food so we can break it down, and so eventually we can combine that with oxygen to create some ATP. Some animals use simple diffusion, and again, this is still talking about transport here, but large animals have organs to help obtain oxygen and get rid of carbon dioxide. Aquatic organisms will use gills, which have a large surface area, here again, to remove oxygen from the water. Land organisms will have lungs, which contain alveoli sacs covered in blood vessels to get oxygen passively into the bloodstream. So both of these increase surface area. And if you increase surface area, that means you increase transport or absorption. Get your job done faster. Okay? So make sure you also write that on these pictures. Next, going into a little more detail with transport, because remember we did say these are interdependent, they're related to each other. To deliver nutrients and oxygen to the cells, most animals have a muscle called a heart to help with transport. The heart is a muscle that pumps to force blood to transport through the body. Animals with lungs have chambered or divided hearts to separate oxygenated and deoxygenated blood for efficient delivery. One thing we want to add here is for humans. Humans have 4 chambers, okay? 4 chambers or 4 divisions. When being pumped, when we're talking about the blood, some organisms like insects have open circulatory systems where the blood moves and around the body freely. So not every animal has blood that's contained within their veins. We, here in this picture, have our heart, and all of our heart is inside of all these veins and arteries and capillaries, and they're all contained. So our blood isn't sloshing around our body. But for other organisms, it does. Other organisms, including worms, amphibians, and mammals, have blood vessels which contain the blood until it's delivered to the cells, which actually makes us a little more efficient in what we do. But remember, all of these are going to be adaptations that help these animals survive their particular environment. So moving along, as the blood circulates, and again, we still have some transport being involved here, it picks up waste which must be removed through excretion. Excretion means to get rid of waste. So animals have unique adaptations that filter waste out of the blood, and the urine waste is usually dissolved in water to balance pH and salt content. So it just means that when you urinate, here are your kidneys. Urine is collected, and there's going to be some extra water that's added in there to help balance the pH, because you do have to make sure that you maintain homeostasis even in your bladder. Structures called nephridia are the smallest unit and are seen in earthworms. That's the smallest kidney-like structure to filter blood. So insects are very unique because their Malpighian tubules, this is their version of a kidney, doesn't use water. This makes them more powerful survivors in dry conditions. So you have the earthworms with the nephridia, the animals with the kidneys, and you also have insects with Malpighian tubules, all of which helps us with excretion. And the last thing, amphibians and mammals have collections of nephridia called kidneys. So we have nephridia as well, with smaller structures inside of our larger kidney. Your kidneys are in your back, that can efficiently balance water, so that's why we can live on land. So kidneys help us live on land, help us maintain our water balance. Okay? Make sure to spend a minute going over your summary box. Write 2 sentences, kind of summarizing at least 2, if not 3, of these functions. Okay? And that's all for today's notes.